Colorado voters approved a constitutional amendment today to bar any city, town, or county from taking action to recognize homosexuals or bisexuals as a protected class.
Amendment 2 took away any protections for people who were or were perceived to be homosexual.
The intention of it was essentially to deny LGBT people from ever petitioning the government for equal rights. And we realized that the voters in the state of Colorado had voted to make us second-class citizens. And it was devastating.
I remember getting angry. I remember getting depressed. I just was home thinking about it and trying to decide what I wanted to do. Just because you're invaded doesn't mean that you leave. It means that you fight back.
Tim did not have a background in philanthropy, but Tim had a passion to make a difference in the world and to help the lives of people, not just in Colorado, but across the country.
Well, I think I'm a bit of a contrarian in everything I do. And that's partially because if everybody's doing something, then maybe you don't need to do it too. And so the areas that I like to concentrate on are areas where there are really gaps in what's being taken care of.
Amendment 2 was ultimately found unconstitutional in 1996 by the United States Supreme Court. I don't think there was any way one could turn back after Amendment 2 had been overturned, because it was just a symptom of a bigger challenge.
Back in those early days, the LGBT movement was quite nascent.
When Tim came out of the closet and became a public philanthropist supporting this, I think he was a beacon of hope for the movement.
And what Tim really set about doing is saying, this isn't just me. We can provide the infrastructure. I can lead the way. But by leveraging that with so many other equality-minded donors across the country, we can have an even greater and more sustained impact.
The LGBT movement is just filled with stories of philanthropists who found their voice and started their journeys as a result of being and outgiving.
Tim's vision for outgiving is one of the great heroic gestures in my book in LGBT history, because he saw us as leaders who would take it out and spread that word and be doing the work ourselves.
We were all seeking rights, civil rights. We were all seeking some freedom within our country, some acknowledgement.
I think one of the most brilliant things that the Gill Foundation did was create the Gay and Lesbian Fund for Colorado. It really took the power away from the negativity around the words gay and lesbian and associated those words with philanthropy and something good.
We ensured that the nonprofit organizations that we funded had non-discrimination policies, and that those non-discrimination policies extended to sexual orientation and gender identity.
You can see there's always this sense of thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead and how all of these steps will build on each other.
From the earliest days of the Gill Foundation, Tim was investing in small, scrappy organizations of LGBTQ people who were willing to stand up and speak the truth about equality and justice in their own voices.
We created a very significant program that trained grassroots LGBT fundraisers all over the country. We basically were planting these seeds that became really the strong trees that became the basis of the LGBT movement that we now know today.
And as the 90s unfolded, we saw tremendous progress, even with many, many blows and difficulties. We saw a real coming together. We saw a real pushing back against these forces and the strengthening and deepening of our movement, but a movement constantly under siege.
It is right because it provides greater protection to those who happen to be homosexual and want to serve their country honorably in uniform, obeying all the military's rules against sexual misconduct.
The president signed a bill barring federal recognition of homosexual marriages.
21-year-old Matthew Shepard was found beaten and unconscious last week near the University of Wyoming.
Hawaii voters gave the state legislature the power to ban same-sex marriage.
One of the beauties of LGBT progress, particularly in policy, has been our ability to be opportunistic, to move forward where we can, to hold the line where we have to, and to sometimes lose forward.
But at its core we stand for something very, very important. And that is that every member of the society matters. Every member of the society deserves to be who they are and to be free to be who they are.
Before Goodridge, we had no marriage, and it was essential to have that breakthrough, that, historic shift and change, that watershed moment. And it was the first time that you had a court, the highest court of a state, saying not only that we are equal, but that we are fully human. And this was important because at that point, in 2004, there were already over 30 states whose laws had been changed to define marriage as a man and a woman.
You can imagine there was a lot of consternation and reeling as we were dealing with those 13 blows. And Tim Gill always said, if we're always only winning, we're not aiming high enough. You're always going to have some losses. Proposition 8 and the loss in California was, of course, a terrible blow. It was a devastating setback and a real painful thing to many, many families and to our movement.
All we could do was say, we're going to get you, we're going to come back for you, we're going to get this right, and move forward.
The Gill Foundation played a crucial role in rallying the movement to keep going.
Connecticut Supreme Court has ruled that same-sex couples do have the right to marry.
Iowa won, America won, and we won because we are right.
Late last night, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed the Marriage Equality Act into law.
Focus on marriage, in the eyes of Gill and others, did not mean dropping everything else and doing marriage. It meant using something powerful and effective to lift all boats.
I think the Gill Foundation and the Outgivers have been successful helping to frame policy, helping to inform those of us in office about what the best practices should look like, what you should try to achieve, where the biggest problems were. The ACA was a pivotal piece of the puzzle because it said from the get-go that healthcare providers, insurers, hospitals could not be discriminatory toward the LGBT community.
For we are not a nation that says, don't ask, don't tell. We are a nation that says, out of many, we are one. We are a nation that welcomes the service of every patriot.
I am absolutely comfortable with the fact that men marrying men, women marrying women, and all are entitled to the same exact rights, all the civil rights, all the civil liberties. And quite frankly, I don't see much of a distinction beyond that.
And you had people standing taller in their states because even though their states were not recognizing their marriages, the federal government did. And this began to put a lot of pressure on things.
Today, we can say, in no uncertain terms, that we've made our union a little more perfect.
Obergefell felt like the culmination of years of work. And it was years of work not only in marriage, but in trying to establish respect for the parent-child relationships of same-sex couples, for the just inherent humanity of LGBTQ people. I was listening even though my heart was racing. What can I say? It changed everything.
I know that we know how to make change. I know we know how to defend our positions. I know we know how to move forward. And I am really confident we're going to be able to keep doing that.
The LGBT rights movement works because there's a collection of donors, there's a collection of activists, and we all work together to make things happen, to make people freer. And in the end, that's what we need. We need the fuel to drive the fire that is the activists that make our movement work.
I think the LGBT movement right now is in a real important pivot point. We've won marriage equality, we've won so much, we've come so far, But there are some real dangers facing us now. Seems pretty obvious to most of us that our opponents feel like they can attack transgender people as a proxy for all LGBT people.
So our job is to show up and push back and to continue to demonstrate we will all do better if we all do better together.
The whole American dream, I think, in many respects is up for grabs. And the real test of any coalition is whether once that issue is achieved, whether they will see their stake in the next struggle and be available to be called on.
I go up to people that I don't even know and say, I'm a gay man. Never used to do that. You didn't say that to people you didn't know.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the work of the Gill Foundation and Tim and so many others who've laid the groundwork for something like this, where sexual orientation just doesn't matter.
This is no time to take a break, no time to rest on our laurels, no time to think we've come far enough.
Change never comes soon enough. People are living right now, and of course, they want to feel whole right now.
What's really important to recognize is that there's not going to be some moment where, poof, we go from no justice to complete justice in everything, right? And to say that we can't take steps because the steps aren't big enough or they aren't right is just wrong. And it's wrong because every increment of justice you make makes someone's life better, and it makes someone's life better now, not in some utopian future. To all of you who've been on this journey with us, I couldn't be prouder of what we've accomplished. You have made the lives of our community better, and you have made my life better as well.